Hello everybody, welcome to Little Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. We are trying to hit 20k subscribers, so I would appreciate it if you joined the Rusty Buckets family. Yay, I said that really fast. Do you feel the parasocial energy, the Little Rusty Buckets family? I'm really trying to cash in on these YouTuber points lately. I did a Q&A, and now I'm doing 2 videos about back-to-back L's that I took. I'm really cashing in my YouTuber chips here. So I just did a video about Josh Giddey. I don't know how people are going to feel about that one because I kind of half said I was wrong, half said I wasn't. But I wanted to talk about another player who I have been wrong about this year because I try to own my L's as much as I can. And Steven Adams is a player that over the last couple of years I've just been very doubtful towards, which is a very weird player to have so many criticisms for over time. But like, first of all, I would just like to say, oh my God, I love Steven Adams, the play, like the person, the guy who Steven Adams is, every clip of him talking, I adore his accent, I adore his whole energy. Maybe the best makes me feel good about humanity moment in the history of sports is when he goes up for a layup. This is when he's on the Thunder and Mason Plumlee like jumps over his shoulder and like falls over him. Rather than going up for the wide open layup, instead choosing to catch Mason Plumlee to prevent him from getting a major injury. That sportsmanship, love that. Steven Adams, so good. Great stories about him, love the guy. However, I did feel like he was probably done in the NBA after he got hurt and was traded to the Houston Rockets. And I had already started to sour on him as a player before said injury occurred because I felt like a lot of the time the Memphis Grizzlies ended up being a better team when he was not on the floor, just for the fact that they had more versatility and speed, and it better suited the youth movement that was happening in Memphis at the time. My big criticism was primarily that just his style of play was not really all that relevant in the modern NBA for anything besides a backup center position and one that is extremely limited in scope. And here's the thing. I mean, he still is in a backup center position that is fairly limited in scope. However, oh my God, is he good at it? Oh my God, has he been great lately? All of the numbers would tell you that basically the last couple of months, Steven Adams is basically the best big man on earth. Like, in terms of what his per minute numbers look like, it's actually comical. There is a 20-point swing on average with Steven Adams checking into the game for the Houston Rockets this year. And what's been really interesting about that is it's been paired with Alperen Sengun playing the power forward position. We are starting to see double bigs more and more and more in the NBA, which is very fascinating to me just from like a evolutionary perspective of we evolved beyond double bigs and then we ended up working our way back towards them just by the constant attempt of shifting the meta in the NBA. What if we shifted the meta back? But Sengun at the 4 with Steven Adams is extremely dominant. They are really good at finishing in the paint. They are really good at getting offensive rebounds. In general, the Houston Rockets are the best rebounding team in the league, bar none, when Steven Adams is on the floor, especially paired with Alperen Sengun. It's working really well, and all the spacing issues that can be found by having those two on the floor together is entirely mitigated by how dominant they are in the paint and on the glass. Now, I just recorded a video like 2 days ago about playoff dark horses, what team I think can actually be the team that surprises everybody in the playoffs, and Houston was a contender for that conversation. And the only reason I didn't really pick them is because there's only so many minutes that you're capable of actually playing Steven Adams in the playoffs, especially because it seems like his stamina is not that great and his utility is still limited. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they really use this lineup as much as they absolutely can, really stretch their Steven Adams dollar as far as they absolutely can, and from there, they could do something with that. Now, I'm nowhere near thinking that Houston's like going on some title run, but especially not based just entirely on Steven Adams. It's making me rethink the NBA in general because like it's definitely very well understood in basketball, modern basketball dogma, that something like Sengun and Steven Adams shouldn't work. That shouldn't be something that actually functions properly because we have come to understand you don't run two centers in the modern NBA. And when you do, at the very least, one of them is a floor spacer. But neither Adams nor Sengun are floor spacers. Fucking Chet Holmgren is a floor spacer. Evan Mobley, to an extent, at least, to a pretty good extent, is a floor spacer. And yet, out here with Houston, we have Sengun, who can kind of shoot threes a little bit, and he's a decent mid-range shooter, and Steven Adams, who can't take anything that's further than 5 feet from the basket, and yet they are making it work. They are one of the best half-court offenses in all of basketball when they are doing this, and it's baffling, but it's also at the same time everything that I love about the game of basketball. The fact that there is no 100% clear answer all of the time is great. The fact that, I think most of what I said about Steven Adams before this season was grounded in a lot of truths that are still somewhat self-evident. However, none that were as damning as I thought they were at the time. You have to be, and this is the same reason I wanted to talk about Josh Giddey, you have to be malleable in terms of your discussion of the game, because if you're like very, very rigid, this just does not work, well, that's not a good mentality, typically speaking. Now, there can be some things that are just, starting Kendrick Perkins at point guard probably isn't a good idea. Sometimes creativity is used as a cover for stupidity, but I don't think that applies to this situation specifically. I don't know. I guess the lesson of this video is to be open to being incorrect, especially when it relates to someone like Steven Adams, because who wants to be right about Steven Adams being out of the league? I didn't. Somewhat in a way that is, I think I said this in a recent video, that is almost borderline a problem. I'm incapable of keeping my mouth shut about what I believe the truth to be, but the truth is subjective, and the truth is also ever-changing. Was it true that Steven Adams was on the brink of being out of the league when he got traded to the Houston Rockets? Yes, that was a reasonable assessment to make at the time, I believe. However, that is not what the truth is now. So shout out to Steven Adams and shout out to the Houston Rockets. I'm interested in them. I have kind of spent the last couple of months not really paying too much attention to them because I kind of felt like I knew what they were. But I've seen a lot of people talking about these lineups. I went and watched a couple of games. I especially paid close attention to the minutes when Adams was on the floor, especially when Sengun was on the floor. It's real. It's something, and it's breaking my brain. But I really enjoy it, and I hope we see more shit to break my brain because it gives me more content. That's the great thing about being a YouTuber is even if you're wrong, you're still going to keep uploading and talking. What are you going to do about it?